Well, thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup. Good morning to everybody. It's Monday morning, and just before we start, what's happening with the markets? There's this wonderful summation of what the world is going through when it comes to interest rates. Since interest rates are top of mind of everybody, and while Brazil and Russia may be on one side and Turkey may be on another, just this map tells you a really good story about where policy rate is unchanged this year. So of course you can see that in India, Canada, and Australia being the prominent ones, and some parts of Europe being out there. But there are a bunch of countries, and like I said, you got to ignore what's happening with Brazil and Russia. They're at some another level altogether. But a bunch of other places have seen some bit of policy rate tinkering, and the minute few, with Turkey being the prominent one, but some of the others as well, have seen interest rate cuts as well. Very interestingly, as the world grapples with inflation. I thought this was a really good summation, so thought we'd bring it to you first up. Now, what about world markets? Last week was all about central banking action and the realization maybe that the Fed put is no longer given, but the lift off in interest rates, at least as far as the US Fed goes, is not going to be very swift. And that maybe calmed a few frayed nerves immediately post policy, but we had the US market sulking quite majorly in Friday's session. So down, Nasdaq was a bit well behaved because it's already had a bit of a corrective move, but we finally had the Dow correcting and 1.5% of a cut there for the Dow. So there's a bit of a pullback certainly out there when it comes to the US markets. What about Asia and the SGX today? Now, before we show you some key charts on the trade setup, let's just see what the markets seem to be indicating. So let's get the Asian screen live and the SGX Nifty live. Just get the SGX Nifty also is okay if we just get those two screens to just try and see what is it that is indicating. Yeah, the SGX Nifty indicates a start which is about a 0.5% lower. So we're likely to start off sub 17,000, yes, but I mean, essentially start off with a bit of a cut. The question is, can it behave itself post that, or will it continue to sulk? I mean, $1 million question. Friday wasn't. The MOV function will show you that Friday had its share of pain and a bunch of stocks. Look at that advanced decline, 66 advancing, only 66 advancing to 434 stocks declining. Mid caps and small caps have been a bit well behaved thus far. The question is, and they have not broken some key support levels. We'll get to that in the trade setup too. But let's wait and watch what happens during the course of today and over the next few weeks. Now, there's this chart which shows how the Indian markets have behaved in the last fortnight or the last 2 weeks of December. And from a bull's perspective, maybe that brings about a bit of a relief, if you will. So most times, as you can see, the black lines are the first 2 weeks of December. And since 2011, we've had only 3 instances of the first 2 weeks also doing well. But look at the pink lines. And of course, the total return for 2020 is an exception. But if you look at the pink lines, save for 1 year, and that was way back in 2011, I don't think you had an instance of the markets not doing well. Nifty 200 not doing well in the second fortnight. Now, the question is, after the first fortnight not being very special for the Nifty 200, is there a case for a bounce for the Nifty 200, that is, even if it's not for the Nifty or the Nifty Bank? Well, history seems to suggest that we'll have a bit of a rally. Let's see if that lasts. Let's see if that happens, rather. The other question is, I'm, as usual, Monday morning, so I borrowed a chart from Dr. C.K. Narayan's weekly column. And I think this chart was interesting simply because if you look at the Nifty small cap 250 and moving averages, the Nifty small cap 250 is still not broken below its key averages. As you can see, the two trend lines, the Nifty small cap 250 is not broken. So as I said, the small caps have been a bit well behaved, save for a corrective move, major corrective move in the last couple of sessions, and particularly on Friday. The question is, or the key point that I'm trying to make out here is, that could it be that by the time the corrective move is digested and starts getting over, the Nifty small cap 250 hits these support lines and starts bouncing back? Do both of those factors coincide, that the small caps hit a support, take support there, and history suggests that the last fortnight is positive for the Nifty 200? Do both of that happen, and do we have a bit of an upswing in the last fortnight? Billion-dollar question. Really, I don't have an answer to that. But I thought these two charts promised a fairly interesting trade setup criteria, so I thought I'd bring it. The risk reward starting to become favorable, not quite there, but you might well see some changes if the moves start a bit lower today and stay that way. So in light of all of this, what are the stocks to watch? I think that's the other question that everybody will be asking. So I thought the few stocks in news included one in IRB Infrastructure, which was selected as a contractor express in the construction of Uttar Pradesh. The contract is for 6,555 crores. The total order book for IRB now stands at 19,210 crores, including construction order book of 12,677 crores. Decent order win. I reckon it should have a positive impact. Let's wait and watch. Future group companies, after CCI imposed a 200 crore penalty on Amazon for failing to identify and notify strategic interest over Future Retail, the deal between Amazon and Future Retail revoked. Now, as per legal parlance, there are multiple implications of this, and I reckon that in some fashion this may not be the end of it all. But I still believe that purely from a market's perspective, not going into the, I'm not no one to try and tell whether the decision was right or wrong from a legal perspective or otherwise, but, or a history of Competition Commission of India or otherwise. So I'm not getting into that debate at all. I'm just saying that as a result of this, we might see reactions on the future group companies, particularly Future Retail. Let's wait and watch. Viewers, watch out for Z, right? Watch out for Z. December 21st is the last date for the deal with Sony for to fructify, so to say. There are some deadlines out here. My point being that I'm not suggesting one way or the other that something will come about. I think rumor mills are around. There are enough and more number of dealers who are telling me that we will see uh, an announcement very, very shortly. But all I'm saying is keep this date in mind that something could take place and which might even bring about a reaction in the stock price of Z Entertainment, because the due date is December 21st, and that's why I'm bringing it to you since today is December 20th. Watch out the next couple of days for moves on Z Entertainment. Some of the stocks in news: Gujarat Alkalis and Chemicals. It's entered into an MOU with GAIL for setting up a 500 kiloliter per day KLPD. That's what they say, 500 kiloliter per day bioethanol plant. Now everybody seems to be getting into this. India is really moving ahead on the ethanol plan, and the GST cut last week was a sure sort sign of that. Uh, I don't think it makes sense to stay bearish on the ethanol plays. Now, how large is this for Gujarat Alkalis is a separate thing altogether. But the fact that you're seeing a bunch of companies which are traditionally not sugar companies, but getting into some bit of ethanol manufacturing shows how serious the government is about the ecosystem and what its messaging would be to companies who are going out there with a proposal, right? Everybody would be talking to some bit of somebody or the other in the government to try and see how feasible, how serious, what have you. I think the last 12 months to 18 months are testimony to the fact that the Indian ethanol program is well and truly underway, and the government is very serious about it. So that is one. They, of course, GSEL and GAIL are also exploring other business opportunities of mutual interest. So watch out for Gujarat Alkalis. Or on PropTech, the rights issue announcement happened in the ratio of 3:2, but it happened at rupees 80 per share. The current price at 145. You might well see the stock correct a bit more. Typically, I'm not saying prices converge, but prices tend to move a little. And we've seen that in a number of cases where in the rights issue pricing being lower, the stock tends to gravitate a bit lower. The stock is corrected quite a bit already. I would reckon that maybe because of the pricing, there could be some more way to go down. Indiabulls Real Estate, there's a board meet on December 22nd to discuss raising funds. The entire Indiabulls group and Indiabulls related, I'm not saying it's a group now because I mean the Gaylords have very little interest in each of these, but all of them, Indiabulls, nomenclature-wise, Indiabulls Finance, Housing Finance, Real Estate, and Dhani Financial Services had a very miserable Friday. Don't quite know if stocks can bounce back very quickly after seeing such carnage, but let's wait and watch. A couple of broking recommendations before I wrap up today's trade setup. One of them was the CLSA view on macro tech. And interesting that while everybody is so bullish on real estate, CLSA is coming out and initiating a sell call with a target price of 1,000. they are saying that macro tech is already pricing in the blue sky scenario. The current rich valuation ignores the business cyclicality, single market focus, which is Mumbai essentially. And they say that at its high value, as its high value completed inventory in South and Central Mumbai gets depleted, it may find it challenging to sustain high growth without gaining significant market share in MMR, which might be a difficult thing. And they estimate pre-sales growth will taper from FY25 to low teens versus 18% CAGR or FY22-24. Depends how you look at it, viewers. There are some brokerages which will say that until FY24, it's still a very high probability of strong growth, and therefore you might want to stay bullish. Remember, they're also in the midst of a fundraising exercise, so you keep that in mind. But I thought it was interesting to bring out a note which is bearish on one of the premier real estate plays, because a bunch of other guys who are bullish, Jeffries, for example, extremely bullish on real estate and macro tech. So good to examine both sides of the argument. And then Morgan Stanley on Nika. They initiate with a neutral and a target price of 2183. Remember, Nika's corrected a little bit post its anchor lock-in opening up, and the market's also sulking a bit. So Morgan Stanley still remains a neutral, though at the current prices. They say that it's a profitable nascent e-commerce business. And along with the beauty strong growth, fashion could follow the same playbook, achieving profitability faster than the market expects. Now, they are saying that they are bullish on the prospects, but they believe that the risk reward appears balanced at the current stock price, which is about 100 rupees lower than their target price. So 90 rupees lower, right? 2093 or thereabouts is where Nika is from a high of 2450 or thereabouts. The key is Morgan Stanley says that their target price is about 2183. Now, different brokerages again have different views, but the latest one makes sense. So we'll talk to you. Let's see if the market stays neutral on Nika, or if the stock were to correct, or even if it were not to correct, do people go out and lap up what's arguably been a winning listing and one of the key stories to tell for 2021? That's it for today, viewers. I may have obviously missed some, but these were amongst, according to me, some of the most critical names to watch out for. I urge everybody to contemplate whether or not we might have a Santa rally, because we seriously have it in the Nifty 200, Nifty 250, or Nifty 200 other. We've had a Santa rally each time in the last 9 years. That chart was tweeted by a Twitter handle called It's Star, which is where I got it from. So just thought I'll make that disclosure as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a safe, profitable day ahead.